All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to the Strategic Briefing. Today we're looking at proven intent data applications in the energy sector. We're going to break down exactly how outdated commercial models are literally destroying corporate enterprise value right now. And more importantly, we'll show you how to engineer a structural solution. This is Project 54, Revenue Architecture Engineered. Here is our agenda for the briefing. 1. The 61% blind spot. 2. Financial diagnostics. 3. Commercial triggers. 4. Pipeline architecture. And 5. Generative engine optimization. Section 1. The 61% blind spot. The independent buyer journey and capital misallocation. So, consider the legacy approach of cold outbound blasting. It operates on a deeply, deeply flawed assumption about how enterprise procurement actually works today. That 61% number, that represents the portion of the buyer's evaluation that is completely finished before your sales team even knows these buyers exist. They're researching, they're comparing, and they're narrowing down options totally independently. If your entire strategy relies on a rep making first contact just to educate the market, you are showing up way after the score has already been decided. And it actually gets worse than that initial 61%. A massive 80% of the entire B2B buying journey happens completely without direct vendor contact. Energy and industrial brands that are still clinging to these rep-centric outbound-heavy strategies, well, they're systematically excluding themselves from the consideration cycle. It's really that simple. In today's capital-constrained procurement environment, sending massive sales teams out to cold call and cold email is just a severe misallocation of corporate capital. Think about it. You're spending big money to interrupt people who are actively trying to avoid you, all while completely missing the ones who are quietly searching for your exact solutions. Which brings us to Section 2, Financial Diagnostics, Quantifying the 9-to-1 Valuation Trap. Let's dig into the math and see exactly how this turns into a full-blown balance sheet crisis when 90% of your marketing budget is burned on the tiny 5 to 10% fraction of the market that's actively buying. CFOs out there, you know this equation inside and out. Your fully burdened customer acquisition cost, or CAC, isn't just your ad spend. It's your sales comp, marketing, your software stack, travel, overhead, the whole shebang, all divided by the number of new customers you actually acquire. When you use broad outbound sequences without any domain verification, basically just shooting in the dark, you artificially inflate this number. In fact, cold outbound channels can absolutely skyrocket your CAC from a really efficient organic baseline of about $480 up to nearly $2,000 per acquisition. You're just bleeding margin to get your foot in the door. And this dynamic creates a massive drag on your pipeline, especially in the enterprise segment. Because when you rely on blind outreach, you're hitting bounce rates of 35 to 40%, which permanently damages your domain reputation. Your emails literally just stop delivering. It creates this huge bottleneck, which then stretches out those already complex 6 to 18 month sales cycles, tanks your MQL to SQL conversion rates, and pushes your payback periods right to the breaking point. Now, what does this all mean? Well, this right here is the ultimate consequence. $24.45 million. And this isn't some theoretical projection, this is a mathematical certainty. By Q1 of 2026, the median enterprise value to EBITDA multiple for green energy companies stabilized at 16.3x. So, if your inefficient customer acquisition processes compress a healthy $5 million EBITDA down to, say, a $3.5 million, applying that 16.3x multiple mathematically guarantees a staggering $24.45 million destruction of corporate enterprise value. Your outdated sales tactics aren't just annoying your buyers, they're actively torpedoing the valuation of your company. All right, let's move to Section 3, Commercial Triggers, Regulatory Compliance Frameworks. So the absolutely crucial point here is knowing exactly when these capital-intensive buyers are actually looking. And in highly regulated sectors like energy, compliance deadlines, those are your ultimate commercial triggers. Things like mandatory Scope 3 carbon disclosures or strict bulk power system cybersecurity mandates like NERC CIP and FERC Order Number 887, these aren't just legal hurdles for your clients. They are highly predictable, machine-readable purchasing signals. Because when enforcement dates start getting close, search volumes for those specific compliance solutions completely skyrocket. Procurement departments are literally embedding these mandates right into their vendor selection process. This is exactly where intent data shines. Next up, Section 4, Pipeline Architecture, Operational Restructuring, the Case of Enertech Solutions. To prove the real-world mechanics of rebuilding this flawed system, let's take a look at the operational turnaround of an enterprise energy vendor called Enertech Solutions. So their legacy outbound system was totally failing. They were relying on these automated email sequences targeting utility accounts that were just completely ignored. Their MQL to SQL conversion rate plummeted below 10%, and their lifetime value to CAC ratio hit a deadly 1-to-1. Basically spending a dollar just to make a dollar. But by shifting to an intent-led model, using third-party intent data to spot the utilities that were actively researching compliance, and then deploying targeted LinkedIn outreach to those mapped buying committees, they turned the whole thing around. They dropped their bounce rates below 5%, halved their acquisition costs, and restored a really healthy 4-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually build that without hiring an army of new analysts? Well, to scale this execution without adding headcount, you have to engineer an event-driven architecture. You use low-code engines like N8N. Step 1, you ingest webhooks from your intent data providers. Step 2, you execute multi-source data enrichment automatically. And step 3, you score that intent instantly using large language models. This completely eliminates those manual prospecting bottlenecks and drops pre-qualified, highly active opportunities straight to your sales team in real time. And this entire automated architecture serves one fundamental master metric: B2B pipeline velocity. The formula is simple. Pipeline velocity equals opportunities times deal size times win rate, all divided by cycle length. By capturing intent early and automating your enrichment, you're shrinking that cycle length in the denominator. When you shorten the cycle and simultaneously increase your win rate with targeted data, your velocity absolutely skyrockets. This is the exact math of how you preserve operating margins and fiercely defend the rule of 40 in corporate finance. Finally, Section 5, Generative Engine Optimization, Technical Machine Readability. Here's the harsh truth. You cannot capture intent if the machines can't read your solutions in the first place. The era of traditional SEO is rapidly making way for conversational AI. Today, 73% of B2B buyers are actually utilizing conversational AI tools to compile their vendor shortlists. They are no longer clicking through 10 pages of Google results. They're just asking AI to summarize the best vendors for, say, NERC CIP compliance. If your corporate web assets aren't clearly visible to search indexers like OAI SearchBot, Claude SearchBot, and PerplexityBot, you are completely excluded from 3/4 of the modern evaluation phase, literally invisible. So to ensure your revenue architecture is engineered for this new reality, your technical teams absolutely must adopt generative engine optimization. And there are 3 non-negotiables here. First up, you have to implement JSON-LD schema markup to explicitly map your entity relationships. You have to tell the AI exactly what you do and who you serve. Second, use citation-first content structures. This means putting your most data-rich answers right there in the first 60 to 120 words of your pages. And third, continuous refresh cycles. Look, 85% of AI citations are drawn from data that's less than 2 years old. If your content is stale, the AI is just going to ignore you. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've seen just how independent the modern buyer journey is, how inefficient outbound is burning millions in enterprise value, and exactly how intent data combined with automated architecture solves it. But as procurement teams increasingly delegate their vendor discovery to artificial intelligence, if conversational AI engines cannot read your entity relationships, how completely invisible is your company? Seriously, if your revenue architecture isn't engineered for machine readability today, do you even exist in the market tomorrow? Think about it. Thanks for joining me for this briefing. Take a hard look at your pipeline architecture and start engineering what comes next.